In 1912, a 4-year-old boy named Bobby Dunbar vanished during a family trip in Louisiana. 8 months later, he was found. Or was he? What followed was a legal circus, 2 grieving families, a mother accused of stealing her own son, and a mystery that wouldn't be solved for nearly a century. This is not just the story of a missing boy. It's the story of 2 lives and 1 identity. Stolen, swapped, or never known in the first place. It started like any ordinary summer day. The Dunbars, a well-off family from Opelousas, Louisiana, were vacationing at a lake called Swayze Lake. 4-year-old Bobby was playing near the water. His parents turned away for just a moment. When they looked back, he was gone. Local police launched a massive search. They dragged the lake, hunted the woods, questioned neighbors. Nothing. Rumors spread. Some said Bobby was taken by a bear. Others believed he'd been kidnapped. Desperate, the Dunbars offered a reward and plastered Bobby's photo across the South. For 8 months, there was nothing but silence. Then, a call came from Mississippi. A boy matching Bobby's description had been found, with a man named William Walters. The boy was brought to the Dunbars. At first, confusion. He didn't seem to recognize his parents. He cried, clung to the man who'd been caring for him. But the next day, the Dunbars claimed he warmed up to them. They said he had the same moles, the same birthmarks, the same eyes. Case closed, right? Not exactly. Because William Walters insisted this wasn't Bobby Dunbar. He said the boy's real name was Bruce Anderson, the son of a woman he knew named Julia. He was just helping care for him while she looked for work. And then, Julia Anderson herself showed up. She saw the boy and said, "That's my son." Julia wasn't wealthy. She was a single mother, working odd jobs to survive. To the courts and the public, she didn't look like mother material. When she arrived in Louisiana, she was allowed to see the boy for just a few minutes. He didn't run into her arms. He seemed unsure. The newspapers pounced. Mother fails to recognize her own son. But Julia insisted. It was him. The court gave her another chance, a longer visit the next day. This time, the boy recognized her, called her Mama, clung to her. But by then, the narrative was set. The court ruled in favor of the Dunbars. Julia was sent home in disgrace, and William Walters was convicted of kidnapping, though later released on appeal. The boy stayed with the Dunbars and lived out the rest of his life as Bobby Dunbar. Bobby grew up, had kids, grandkids, lived a full life. But the story never quite went away. His children said he always had doubts. He questioned his memories, avoided talking about the early years. The Dunbars treated him as their own, but something always felt off. Then, nearly 90 years later, one of Bobby's grandchildren decided to search for the truth. She got a DNA test, comparing her father's DNA to that of the real Dunbar family. The results? No match. The boy who lived as Bobby Dunbar was not Bobby Dunbar. The real Bobby Dunbar was never found. What happened to him that day by the lake? No one knows. Did he drown and the body was never recovered? Was he kidnapped and vanished forever? Or was he accidentally killed and the family covered it up? All speculation. But the boy who was found, Bruce Anderson, had lived an entire life under a false name. And Julia Anderson? She'd been telling the truth all along. She was smeared in the press, ignored by the courts, branded a liar. But she never wavered. Until the day she died, she insisted that the boy taken from her arms was her son. Turns out, she was right. This isn't just a case of mistaken identity. It's a story about how power shapes truth, how grief can blind people, and how society believes what it wants, especially when it's more convenient. Julia Anderson didn't lose her son in 1912. She lost him to a system that decided a wealthy family deserved him more. And the boy, Bruce, was caught in the middle of it all. He lived a life he never chose, under a name that was never his. Loved, yes, but never quite belonging. What's worse, he never knew who he really was. Bruce Anderson lived nearly 9 decades as someone else. He married, raised children, became a grandfather, all under a name that didn't belong to him. To the world, he was Bobby Dunbar. To himself, maybe even he didn't know. The truth only surfaced long after his death. Too late for Bruce. Too late for Julia Anderson, who died without ever being believed. Too late for the man accused of kidnapping, who was imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. But the damage didn't stop there. Bruce's descendants grew up believing in a family story that wasn't theirs. Weddings, birth certificates, family trees, all rooted in fiction. And Julia's family? They lived for decades under the shadow of doubt, branded as liars, dismissed by the press, erased from the story. The justice system took her child, and then history forgot her name. It makes you wonder, what if no one had tested the DNA? What if the lie had lived on for another 100 years? And how many other truths, just like this one, are still buried, quietly shaping lives without anyone knowing? Maybe that's the darkest part of the story. Not the mystery, not the courtroom drama, but the silence that followed. Because when identity is stolen, the scars don't end with one generation. They echo. What if your entire identity was based on someone else's grief? What if everything you knew wasn't real? Let us know what you think in the comments. Was it an honest mistake, a cover-up, or something darker? Hit that like button, subscribe, and join us next time on Real Dark Stories, where truth is buried deep. And sometimes it stays buried for 100 years, until someone dares to dig it up.